taking things personally can drain your energy, your joy, and your sense of self. But what if you can learn to let go, protect your peace, and not carry every mood or comment like it's yours to fix? In this video, I'm sharing 8 gentle but powerful ways to stop internalizing what was never meant for you. Now, if you're returning, welcome back. But if you're new here, hi, my name is Tiffany, and I make content all about becoming the best version of yourself. Now, if that sounds like your vibe, girl, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you. Let's get into it. Now, let me say this up front. Some things are personal. Sometimes people really do overstep, hurt us, or act with intention. And your feelings are valid. But what I want to talk about is, why do we tend to take so much more personally than we need to? Even the small things like somebody leaving you unread, a missed invite, or the weird tone in someone's voice. There's even psychology behind this. Our brains are wired to seek meaning and assign stories, especially when we feel unsure or vulnerable. And when there's a gap in information, we tend to fill it with self-blame. Why? Because it gives us a sense of control. If it's our fault, maybe we can fix it. Maybe we can prevent it from happening again. It's a survival instinct rooted in fear, not truth. We also take things personally when we already have unhealed wounds around rejection, not being enough, or not feeling seen. In those moments, even something small can hit like a personal attack because it confirms an internal fear. And when those wounds go unchecked, we start seeing the world through a distorted lens. When everything feels personal, even when it's not. That's why the first shift you have to make is learning how to step back and see the situation for what it really is. Now let's start with this truth. Most things aren't actually about you. That cold tone, that dry text, that shady body language, it's tempting to immediately assume, did I do something wrong? Or why are they treating me like this? But more often than not, what people do, how they behave, and what they say is a mirror of what's happening within them, not a judgment of your worth. They're living in their own minds, their own insecurities, and their own unhealed stories. And let's be real, it's people out here carrying stress, fear, drama, anxiety, trauma, and insecurity. And sometimes they don't know how to process it, so they project it, You might just be the person standing in front of their emotional mirror when it all spills out. But here's the catch. The moment you take that projection personally, you adopt their wounds and start carrying pain that was never yours to begin with. You end up creating false narratives like, they must not like me, or maybe I did something wrong. When in reality, you were never the cause. You were just the closest target. I want you to pause right here and take this in. Not everything is about you, and not everything requires your emotional energy. You don't have to absorb people's moods. You don't have to analyze their distance, and you definitely don't have to make their attitude your burden. Now, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I love to give you questions to reflect on, and that's intentional. I'm not just here to talk at you. I want you to talk to yourself. Because real growth starts with self-awareness. So even if it feels repetitive sometimes, these check-in questions are how we break patterns, not just notice them. Now with that said, when something someone does starts to mess with your peace, I want you to ask yourself, what does this really have to do with me? Could this be about something they're struggling with that I don't even know about? This simple self-check recenters your power. You stop over-personalizing. You stop overanalyzing. You stop performing emotional labor for people who won't even meet you halfway. And once you realize most things aren't about you, the next step is learning how to slow down your reaction and check the story you're telling yourself. Here's what most of us were never taught growing up. Just because something feels personal doesn't mean it is. Our emotions are so valid, but they're not always accurate reflections of reality. You may feel rejected because someone didn't text you back. You might feel disrespected because they didn't invite you. You might feel judged because someone gave you a weird look. But the truth is, those are interpretations, not facts. And this is where emotional maturity comes in. Maturity is being able to say, this did hurt, But let me step back and look at what's really going on. Did this person actually do something wrong? Or did I take it in a way that triggered something deeper in me? We live in a world that encourages emotional reactivity. People clap back, block, post subliminals, or cut people off without ever checking their own interpretation first. Disciplined, self-aware women don't rush to react. They pause and get curious instead of defensive. And here's a truth bomb. Sometimes you're not even hurt by the situation itself. You're hurt by the meaning you gave it. They didn't include you? You told yourself you didn't matter. They forgot your birthday? You told yourself no one really cares. They offered feedback? You told yourself you're not good enough. And that's the danger of unchecked emotion. It writes a whole story in your head, and you start living in that story as if it's fact. The next time you get triggered, I want you to zoom out before you react. Instead of spiraling from emotion, take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What actually happened? What story am I telling myself about this? Because when you zoom out, you see that it's not always about you. It's about perspective. And perspective protects your peace. Emotional intelligence is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about being wise enough to question them, sort through them, and not let them lead you off course. Now, it's one thing to sort through your feelings, but it's even more powerful when you stop letting your ego call the shots. Let's be real. Your ego is loud. It wants to be liked. It wants to be seen. It wants approval, attention, and applause. And when it doesn't get those things, it panics. The ego interprets silence as rejection. It takes neutral feedback as a personal attack. It sees every unfollow, every skipped message, every unmet expectation as proof that you're not enough. But here's the truth. Your ego is not your identity. You are not your follower counts. You are not how fast someone texts you back. You are not your job title, your outfit, your body, your last relationship, or your last misstep. That's all surface, and your soul goes way deeper than that. And the more attached you are to your ego, the more fragile your peace becomes. Because you start needing constant validation to feel okay. And that's a dangerous place to live, because now your worth is in other people's hands. Let me remind you, you're allowed to be misunderstood and still feel whole. You're allowed to be overlooked and still know your value. You're allowed to release the pressure to prove anything, because being aligned matters more than being liked. I want you to practice detachment from the ego by pausing when you feel triggered and asking yourself, is this coming from my spirit or from my ego trying to protect itself? Am I looking for peace or approval? Let your spirit, not your ego, do the talking. That's where confidence lives. That's where calm lives. That's where your true power lives. When your ego steps aside, what's left is the real you. That's why it's so important to know exactly who you are and what you stand for. When you're anchored in who you are, the noise around you gets a lot quieter. You stop flinching at rejection. You stop shrinking for approval. You stop being emotionally whiplashed by who's supporting you and who's suddenly distant. Because here's the truth. When you don't know who you are, the world will try to define it for you. You start molding yourself to fit in. You start seeking confirmation in places that don't even have the emotional maturity to see you clearly. But when you do know your core values, your why, your truth, your non-negotiables, you move differently. You walk into rooms with peace. You make decisions without second guessing. You stop needing to over-explain yourself to people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. This is what I call internal leadership. It's when you lead yourself with so much alignment that external approval becomes a bonus, not a requirement. I want you to take a moment and self-reflect. What are 3 values I refuse to compromise on, no matter who's watching? When do I feel most like myself? Who am I when no one's trying to edit or critique me? What truth do I need to return to when I start questioning my worth? You don't need everyone to agree with you. You just need to agree with yourself and move from that place. Now, being grounded in your identity is powerful. but it means nothing if you keep reacting in the heat of the moment. And that's where emotional discipline comes in. In fact, high-performance coach Brendan Burchard reminds us that calmness comes from not taking things so personally. And he says the trick is lengthening the timeline of judgment, giving yourself permission to wait before reacting. When something triggers you, whether it's a shady comment, an offhand remark, a post, or even a moment of silence, I want you to pause. Don't text back, don't clap back, don't over-explain, don't spiral. Give it 24 hours. Because when you react in the heat of the moment, you're often responding from your wound, not your wisdom. And that response can cost you peace, dignity, and even clarity. Girl, your feelings are real, but they're not always stable. Emotions, like waves, can feel overwhelming in the moment. But give it time, and that same wave that knocked you down will roll back into calm. You don't want to make permanent statements from a temporary emotional storm. You don't want to send that long text you're going to cringe over later. And you definitely don't want to give someone access to your peace just because you were momentarily hurt. During this pause, I want you to ask yourself, will this still matter tomorrow? Is this worth disturbing my peace over? Is my reaction about the situation, or is it about how it made me feel about myself? Girl, let time do what time does best. Clarify what's real and what's just a reaction. Silence is a powerful filter. What still bothers you tomorrow is worth processing. What fades was never worth your energy to begin with. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't defending yourself. It's giving it a day and realizing you have nothing to prove. Once you master the pause, you realize people-pleasing is not worth your peace. And you start to release the pressure to be liked by everyone. Girl, you could be the sweetest peach, but someone will still hate peaches. You can be soft-spoken or outspoken, reserved or confident, and people will still form opinions based on their own projections, preferences, and perceptions. And the truth is, that's not your business to manage. Trying to be liked by everyone is one of the quickest ways to lose your authenticity. You start diluting yourself, you tiptoe, you second guess, you perform instead of existing. And before you know it, you're showing up as a version of yourself that isn't even you, just a version crafted to avoid disapproval. But here's the thing, you were not created to blend in, you were created to align. Not everyone is your assignment, not every room is meant for you, not every person will get you. And that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. And girl, honestly, some people don't even like themselves. So you really didn't stand a chance. Girl, let it go. Respect will always be greater than approval. Being liked is temporary, but being respected, that lasts. Respect comes when you have boundaries, when you lead with integrity, and when you stay rooted in your values. Peace will always feel better than people pleasing. Girl, you don't need no fan club. You need a solid foundation. You are enough, even if someone else can't see it. Now, if you made it this far in this video without taking me personally, girl, you healing. Drop this emoji in the comments if you're committed to choosing peace over pettiness this week. Because honey, we are booked, busy, and emotionally unavailable for nonsense. Now, when you let go of that need for approval, you become more open to growth. Even when it comes in the form of feedback or critique. And let's be honest now, criticism stings, even when it's well-meaning. But that sting doesn't always mean it's an attack. Sometimes it's just hitting a sore spot you didn't even know needed healing. You know, not all criticism is meant to tear you down. Sometimes it's a mirror showing you where you can improve. Other times it's a door redirecting you to something better. And yes, sometimes it is just noise from people who are projecting their own insecurities onto you. Your power comes from knowing how to discern the difference. You don't have to internalize every opinion. You don't have to defend yourself every time someone doesn't like what you said, wore, or did. Instead of crumbling, get curious. Ask yourself, is there some truth in this? Even if it's uncomfortable, is this helping me grow? Or is this someone else trying to control or diminish me? The moment you stop seeing criticism as rejection and start seeing it as redirection, your mindset changes. You no longer personalize every comment. You process it. You use it to evolve, not to spiral. And that's what emotionally mature women do. They choose refinement over reaction. I want you to start using criticism as a mirror, not a weapon. If it reflects something that you need to work on, thank it and grow. But if it's just noise, walk past the mirror and don't look back. You're allowed to receive, release, or refuse feedback. The wisdom is in knowing when to do which. And once you stop personalizing criticism, you reclaim your peace. Because in the end, it's not about controlling other people. It's about protecting your energy. There comes a point in your growth where you stop making yourself available to chaos. You stop decoding side eyes, overthinking text messages, and trying to figure out why someone's acting distant. Why? Because you realize that's their storm, not yours. People will project. They'll project their stress, their self-doubt, their insecurities, and their bitterness. And if you're not careful, you're going to start picking up what they're putting down and carrying it like it belongs to you. But here's the shift. You don't have to absorb what was never meant for you. You're allowed to care without carrying. You're allowed to be kind without being drained. You're allowed to protect your peace without needing to explain or apologize for it. When you stop taking things personally, you stop letting everyone have access to your emotional thermostats. You stop being pulled into arguments, mood swings, or guilt trips you didn't sign up for. And that's what makes you untouchable in the best way. Not because you don't feel, but because you've built a boundary around your peace and said, this space is sacred. I want you to ask yourself, am I absorbing someone else's energy, or am I staying rooted in my own? Is this situation disturbing my peace, or revealing who I need distance from? What would choosing peace look like in this moment? I want you to write these down in your journal and affirm them daily. Not everything deserves my reaction. Protecting my peace is a full-time job, and I'm on the clock. I am no longer available for energy that confuses, drains, or devalues me. You don't need to fix people. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Let that be your boundary and your breakthrough. At the end of the day, girl, not everything is yours to carry. Protecting your peace, honoring your boundaries, and choosing not to personalize everything. That's how you grow. That's how you glow. Now, if this video helps shift your mindset, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Especially if you're doing the inner work and choosing yourself more every day. And if you're currently in a season where you feel unseen or unheard, I want you to watch my video, How to Stay Focused in Your Silent Season. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you there.